Well, welcome to Wednesday Web Chat. This is Carl Lewis, your host from Vision 33, and welcome to what I hope will be a little bit of, call it a Saltbox update for 2022. As most of you know, Vision 33 introduced Saltbox, our integration as a platform service, about 2 years ago. And there's been a lot take place over those 2 years, and I just thought I'd like to briefly bring you up to date with kind of what it is and what we have it doing today, and share a few stories with you about what other customers are doing with Saltbox in particular. So as you might know, ERP is very much an evolving thing. So all of our customers, all of you online today, no matter which ERP of the 3 ERP systems that Vision 33 represents today, be it SAP Business One, Sage Intacct, or SAP Business by Design, all of them change over time. I can tell you that in my 20-year experience with SAP Business One in particular, it started out as a very sort of small, you could easily get your head around it, ERP system. But over time, it has grown significantly. More features have been added. And as you'll see when we get to the end of today, we'll talk about the new SAP Business One user guide and how it's had to grow over the years because of the growth in the product in particular. So there are more features, more functions, more benefits, all these things that over the last 20 years have made that small, simple ERP system into a much bigger, much more complicated offering to address the needs of many different types of businesses in a much more adequate fashion. There are more benefits. It does reduce time. It does make you more efficient. It does do more things that a business does on a daily basis. But as you well know, there are still gaps. There are still things you wish it could do. And every month there's a new patch released or a new feature pack released where there are fixes and additions and changes. And that list just goes on and on and on and on. At one point, it's over. I don't keep it up to date as much as I used to, but I used to keep kind of a running version, feature pack by feature pack list of new features for SAP Business One. And over about a 10-year period of time, there were at least 200 changes to the application. So ERP systems kind of have a tendency to start out simple. Even if you took the ERP system today and implemented it as a new product, it would kind of start out simple. You'd be looking at the basic processes and how it basically works and trying to implement it to be as simple and as straightforward as possible. The problem is that we then complicate it, right? We start to, the word I'll use today is compose our own data management model for our unique business requirements and processes. So we start changing it. We start connecting it to other things. We start customizing it. We start configuring it just for the way we want it. And that complicates the whole system. And it's what we mean by a composable ERP system. It's flexible enough that we can change it, that we can modify it, and that we can make it our own. So if you take a look at how we've done that traditionally over the years, the ERP system kind of sits in the middle of everything that we do. We want it to be as feature rich as it possibly can be. We hope that we can only have to make one purchase and that it'll do everything we need it to do. But alas, that never really happens unless we are maybe a startup or the simplest of businesses. That just doesn't occur. And so there are other things that are necessary. They could be things like warehouse management systems. They could be things like customer relationship management systems. They could be analytics and reporting requirements that are heavier than what comes standard out of the box with your ERP system. They could be tax systems because we do business in 20 different places and the tax system that's in the ERP system really isn't robust enough to address our tax requirements. They could be human capital management systems, HR systems, another way to say that, where we want to attach a payroll system and a HR system to track a person's journey with our company as an employee to the ERP system. They could even be e-commerce systems that we want to connect to our ERP system so that everything is connected, everything's talking together, and everything's working together for a very slick and smooth process throughout the entire business and all departments. So we integrate those. Each of these integrations typically historically has been a one-off unique integration customization. And so you could have one, you could have two, you could have 19, as I heard about one customer recently. Each of them is individual. Each one of them is its own unique program, not built on any kind of a platform or anything. No sameness about them. They're all unique. They place a tremendous burden on the ERP system. So they are resource competitive. The ERP system, if you're familiar, if you run more than a particular number of add-ons, you'll notice that the performance of your ERP system will decline. And you try to enhance that by adding more resources to your server and various other things that you can do, enhancing your bandwidth and things to make your e-commerce system work better. But all of them are resource competitive. You have multiple integration points, not just one, but multiple. They're maintained by developers, which means it's costly. So if you have 6 of them, like in our illustration here on the screen, you've got 6 different projects that have to be maintained by development. And you can change them, you can modify them, but oftentimes you don't because it's very costly. And so you live with their inadequacies over years in the process. You just try to keep them working and maintained. It gives you great scalability challenges because the system slows down and drags because all of these integration points make the system slow because it puts a burden on the database that's behind the scenes to process all that information from other systems. And it makes your upgrades really expensive because every time you upgrade, in this illustration, you've got 6 pieces of code, 6 customizations that you must individually modify every time you upgrade. And so keeping up to date on your ERP system and all of the legal changes and other things that are required in those ERP systems for your business, depending on where you do business, you try to do as few of them as possible because it's such a overwhelming experience to have to go through an upgrade. Not quite the same as deploying your ERP in the first place, but it's very close once you have a complicated system like the one we're looking at. And I know that many of you do. So along comes the concept of Saltbox to try to bring some relief, a lot of relief, to this particular architectural struggle that we've created when we start composing our own ERP system overall. So composable ERP is something that's built differently. Now you'll notice here that all of these things like e-commerce, CRM, tax, HCM, analytics and reporting, WMS are all exactly where they were located previously. But notice that our ERP system has moved out here to the outside also. In a composable ERP format, the ERP system is no longer seen as the center of everything. It's one of the best of breed applications that we use when we compose our own unique, purposeful, business process-driven ERP system. And an integration platform, enter Saltbox, really becomes the center of everything. And we don't have multiple integration points to our ERP system. We have a single integration point to our ERP system that runs through Saltbox. And all the other integrations to the other systems run through Saltbox. It's much more efficient and can be maintained by you, the user, much easier. So it's Saltbox centric. It is integration platform centric. That's what a new composable ERP system is all about. Saltbox is a cloud deployment. It's in the cloud. So it's really much easier to integrate with, much faster to integrate with, much faster and easier to add resources and increase the productivity of the system because it's there. It is software as a service. So you don't buy it. Like all software as a service, you rent it on a monthly basis. It is extremely scalable because it places less stress on the ERP system. Because instead of the e-commerce system and the CRM system and the tax and HCM and analytics and reporting and WMS all being directly integrated to the ERP system, they all pass information either to and from through Saltbox your integration platform. So it's an integration platform as a service. Another way to say that is just like they've created software as a service and call it SaaS. Integration platform as a service is called iPaaS, IPAAS. So it becomes not just an integration platform, however, it's important to recognize that Saltbox now is growing and it's becoming something else altogether. So it is also an automation center. So when you want to automate certain things in your ERP system or in any of your other selected systems, you can automate certain functions, like automatically creating a production order for every sales order that's created if you want to. For every production order that's created, you can automatically create the subassemblies production orders that are associated. So many automations that you can bring to your system all through the Saltbox platform. And some of those automations can be driven by things you notice that happen in other systems, and therefore you can do certain things in your ERP system automatically. In the very near future, we're testing this today. Saltbox is also becoming a data warehouse so that things that you want to report on, that today, when you run these big reports out of your ERP system, they place a demand on the ERP system and on the database that slow the whole system down for your users because you don't want to run everything at midnight. You want it in the middle of the day. This can also resolve those types of issues because the data that I want from all of these systems, I can place into the database that resides in Saltbox, and I can report not based on my ERP database system in that case, but I can use analytics and reporting to report directly out of Saltbox and not place any burden on my ERP system at all. And that data can be updated in real time, always available to me. And I don't have to wait for batches and other things to occur. Probably one of the most exciting things is that we can teach you how to maintain these connections so that if all of a sudden you want a new field out of your e-commerce system, you yourself can learn how to map that new field from e-commerce through Saltbox to ERP and back again so that it's able to be maintained by users. I'll even share with you one company today that their IT vice president is doing a lot of his own Saltbox integration work to their e-commerce platform without any help today from Vision 33, other than some advice here and there. So what is a composable ERP system? It's automation and integration that creates better processes and experiences for employees, customers, and vendor partners. To date, this is a big part of the update information. There are 225 Saltbox implementations just in the years 2019 and 2021. So since we released it 2 years back, there's been 225 Saltbox implementations. That's a big number in a very short period of time. So we have not been without work to do during the pandemic. We've had lots of stuff going on and have been still challenged for resources for all of our projects all along the way. Saltbox has connectors. Now, these connectors are important because it means that each time that you want to integrate something, you are not starting from scratch if you use any of this growing list of really popular Saltbox connectors. So as you can imagine, the Saltbox connectors, they're already developed for SAP Business One, for Sage Intacct, and for SAP Business by Design. Likewise, some of the most popular systems that people use, right, for other purposes, like HubSpot for CRM, like WooCommerce, Shopify, Salesforce, Magento for websites, right, ShipStation for shipping, all of these connectors have already been built. And so it's just simply a matter of using out-of-the-box functionality that's been sort of built in standard workflows in these pre-existing connectors. And they can be built upon so that you can enhance them. Additionally, you can create your own new connector to some system we haven't heard before, as long as it has an API or a way of connecting to the database. So to review that a little bit, pre-built connectors really accelerate integrations between popular mission-critical business systems like ERP systems, CRM, marketing automation, POS, and websites. And as applications evolve, these pre-built connectors, they update the system dynamically, preventing disruptions to business operations. They include a set of standard workflows, and they're easily customized to support any automation scenario, something you can do yourself as you become familiar with the Saltbox software. And custom connectors can also be created. We've done many custom connections for those 225 implementations, and they're not in our list of popular connectors, but we still have them, and on occasion we can pull them out to make use of them. So how important is this concept of composable ERP? Well, with the old way of doing things, you'll remember we would have a connection for every resource that we had out there. Well, one of our customers, a really large cosmetics manufacturer, I can't share their name. They're rather private about their IT situation, but they had to reduce their landscape because it just wasn't working for them. And the problem was they had 19 individual integrations. And with Saltbox's help, they were able to bring that down to a total of 3 integration points with the help of Saltbox. So Saltbox can really simplify a complicated landscape and make your entire environment much more productive, easy to maintain, and lower cost by far. So I wanted to share with you guys today some stories about customers. And so what I'm going to do is put some files in the chat for you. And I have to do this live while you're logged in order to make it work. So, and I have to do them one at a time, naturally. So I'm going to place them in the chat. So if you go to chat, you'll be able to download them. So that's what I'm doing right now. I've got 3 of them out there. And now 4. So I have placed 5 customer stories into the chat, and it takes them just a moment to download. And I'm also going to place a couple of other Saltbox specific documents for you. One is just our connectors brochure. So it'll talk a little more in depth about the connectors and their possibilities. And of course, I'm going to place our Saltbox overview brochure there for you. You'll see the little green check mark when you go to chat. If you click on that check mark, it'll kind of take you through downloading that to your system. And these will be important for you as you try to share about the Saltbox story with other people in your organization. You'll have some real life examples. So now I can just tell you briefly a little bit about each one of these companies that are here in these success stories that I just put into the chat for you. So ConnectTrack is in Dallas, Texas, and their challenge was really unique. They had several quoting systems that were outside of SAP Business One. They're sort of an engineer to order kind of a company. So every company that works with them does something very unique depending on their building. If you see in this illustration of the background here that's on the screen, you see these little black devices coming up from the floor, going to each workstation. Well, underneath of that black little snake-looking item there are channels in the floor that ConnectTrack customizes and designs and installs for companies. Every day, they process about 100 to 150 very, very complicated quotes. And this was taking them roughly in man hours, about 100 hours each and every day. Now, with Saltbox's help, they were able to actually, and the reason it took that is because they had to take these offline quotations and then recreate them as a quotation in SAP Business One, right? That took a lot of time because it was completely manual. And so with Saltbox's help, they were able to connect to these remote systems and automatically recreate the quote in high detail in SAP Business One in a matter of seconds. So now the only step that's required to be taken is sort of a manual step of validating and emailing that quotation out of Business One. And according to their IT director right now, they're working on steps in Saltbox to even automate that process, so no one will have to touch it whatsoever. So they've gone from requiring 100 hours of man hours a day down to about 10 hours man hours per day to manage this. And soon that's to be almost zero. So a tremendous boost in productivity for ConnectTrack to be able to use Saltbox in that fashion. And it's not just one site, it's like 6 sites that they've done this with. And their newest thing that they're going to do is to be able to integrate with a new Shopify website. And they're doing that all on their own. So quickly, we sell mats. They provide some error-free order fulfillment across all marketplaces using Saltbox. And their challenge was that they had several systems out there processing sales orders and using Shopify, but none of that Shopify information was coming back into Business One adequately. So they integrated multiple sales points outside of their system, and all of the Shopify information and all of the ShipStation information in particular about postage, all of that came back into SAP Business One. So you can read about that project also. Fall Creek, this is a company that basically does blueberries all over the world, right? And so they create these biological types of blueberries that will grow in almost any soil anywhere in the world. So they have multiple operations, at least 6 of them throughout the world in various countries. And the trouble was, every time they go to enter a new product or update an inventory item, they would have to open every one of those 6 companies and make the modifications to inventory, whether it was an addition or an edit. Well, now with Saltbox's help, they change it once in their master database, and it replicates those changes to all 6 of those companies simultaneously. Now, that change used to take about an hour for every item they wanted to modify, right, in all of their master data, in all of those systems, because everybody had to do it 6 times. Well, now it takes just 1 time, so 1/6 of the time that it used to take for those changes to be made. Green Spouts, they manufacture a lot of organic clothing material for children, and a lot of it has to do with their time around the swimming pool and stuff like that. And really, it was their desire to integrate websites, Shopify websites in particular, to SAP Business One. They had another system called Apps Connect, which has been around for a while, trying to do it, but it was error prone and they couldn't modify it and maintain it by themselves. So their IT director, who had been an SAP business customer for quite some time, discovered that Vision 33 had Saltbox, and he was able to make Saltbox do everything they needed it to do in a very low cost format and very quickly. They were up and running in about 2 weeks. Paris Glove, they manufacture and distribute, let's call it weather gear for extreme cold. And they're really popular with skiers and outdoor people all over the world. And they too really just deployed SAP Business One, but right now on their roadmap is creating their first ever Shopify websites, and they're going to integrate that with SAP Business One with Saltbox. So those are just some things that I wanted to share with you. I do really encourage you to take a look at all of those documents that are there and download them so that you can read in more detail, right? Some last things, those success stories are attached, of course, and just, is it time to reimagine your current system? Have you been delaying because of cost and timeliness? Are you struggling with manual processes? Does reporting place a heavy burden on your ERP system? Have you long wanted to integrate your CRM systems? If all of those things are true, you should definitely check out Saltbox. And just one thing, there's a new version of SAP Business One user guide available to you. It was updated for version 10, has a brand new HANA chapter. It introduces the new web client, and it updates all the chapters since version 2 with new illustrations and screenshots in a larger format. So it's available in multiple digital formats also, either on SAP Press's website, so just go to SAP Press and search for SAP Business One, or Amazon, and you can just type in SAP Business One user guide and you'll find the new one there too. It's 704 pages and something I'm very proud to have my name on, and hope that it helps you and people that you know running SAP Business One.